do something. We're going back to the deli. Remember, that's where I took us a few weeks ago, matzo ball soup and half-sour pickles, remember? And of course, and most importantly, the Reverend Ellen Spiro and Aaliyah Kemmler, my dear friends. I arrive and the line is unusually long, like out the door long. Ellen waves to me from the middle, and Aaliyah, as ever, is the last to arrive. You all have that friend. We are slowly but surely creeping along when the woman right in front of us abruptly steps out of line. I look at her with a question on my face. I just got a text, she says. They're going to be 20 minutes late. Oh no, you are so allowed to be pissed at them, I say to her. And she was, but as my niece Vivian would describe it, the woman was funny angry. You know how that is, like you're pretending to be angry, but you're not really angry, and it's funny. So that's what Vivian says, it's funny angry. That's Vivi's favorite emotion, she once told me. And this woman was. Deadpan, Ellen asks, who are they? It's her parents and her uncle. Aaliyah arrives just in time as the hostess brings us to the table that would have rightfully been for the woman now left to wait for her parents and her uncle. With a backwards glance, we offer her our condolences. About a half hour later, there is a knock on the plexiglass that separates our table from the line on the other side. It's our friend, looking sad and hungry. And the funny part of funny angry has definitely faded. Still not here, she whines. They said 5 more minutes. I invite her to come and join us. And she laughs. Leah offers her our last half-sour pickle, and her face lights up. Yes! And Leah sweeps up the pickle bowl and delivers it out on the line. And the woman scarfs it up in a New York Jewish deli minute. So you see, that's what I'm talking about. You are only one. But still you can offer a stranger a sympathetic laugh and a half-sour pickle. And on most days, that's enough. Most days. But as you well know, these days are not most days. I know that anxiety is running high in the hearts, minds, and souls of liberal religionists. Liberal religionists who hold close the values of liberty and justice for all, and out of many, one, and the inherent worth and dignity of every person. The litany of violence and injustice that befell our country the week before last and this past week brought us to a new low at a time when we are realizing that we best banish the phrase, "It can't get any worse." The week before last certainly tested our individual and collective mettle. And then it was last week, because that's how our lives work. Our lives continue on. And our challenge is that as our lives keep on, so must we. We must do not everything, but still we must do something. Most importantly, we must keep hope kindled. It is, for me, the central religious imperative. So it was with great interest that I picked up the current issue of New York Magazine to read an essay entitled, "No Time for Self-Care. Will freshly minted progressives get their mojo back before November 6th? Although the essay is specifically talking about the week between this issue's publication and Election Day, its salience will stretch beyond that time frame. The writer, Rebecca Traister, her name is, considers the differences between specifically white women who became politicized after the 2016 election and activists of color who have been in the struggle for justice for the long haul. Tracer considers the crushing losses of late, and centrally that of the Supreme Court justice just sworn in. And while she understands the response to such devastation may be to retreat, to take time to recover before getting back up again, she reasons that we have no such luxury or time. She writes, "It may be devastating to white women who thought they had leverage within the white patriarchy to experience what it's like for people of color who have never had that illusion, who have never believed that speaking up or writing to their senators or even voting would improve their lot. Bless you. But the recent steamroll can also be instructive and reorienting." Now hear this, beloveds. She continues. "This is where hope becomes a tactical necessity. This is where hope becomes a tactical necessity. If past generations who were kept from polls and beaten on picket lines, tear-gassed and hanged and enslaved and incarcerated hadn't kept imagining that their efforts would someday bear fruit, even if it would be after their deaths, we'd be in more trouble in 2018 than we already are." She continues, "There will be a time in our lifetimes to temporarily pull back and recover from bitter defeats. There will be so many more bitter defeats. But now, any impulse toward what some refer to as self-care or healing or flirting with despair must be resisted. To which I say, amen, sister." Amen. Do you say amen? Amen. Amen. There can be no giving in to despair. None. Ever. We all need to do everything that we can to keep despair at bay and peace and justice and love in our very sharp focus. Some weeks like this week just passed, that means attending no less than 5 gatherings to plan or participate in efforts to remind myself and to remind others that we belong to each other, as Mother Teresa said. I saw many souls at those gatherings at Temple Emmanuel, at St. James, here at All Souls, upholding our 6th principle that proclaims the goal for a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Sometimes we are led to the synagogue for the vigil or concert. Sometimes we are led to the church for the rally. Sometimes we offer a stranger a pickle. All of these help make the world a better place, and they make us less despairing. But I am only one. Still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. That may well be the bulk of my credo. It is at least the heart of it. So we're going to talk a little bit about Edward Everett Hale, the guy who said this. That's him. Jesse, you're all over the place.
Sorry.
You know why? Because I forgot to give you the manuscript telling you when to do this. So the poor guy is just like, give me something. Give me something. This is Edward Everett Hale. He was a Unitarian minister born in Boston in 1822. He died in 1909, and he was, in fact, Nathan Hale's great-nephew. I know that means something to all of you. 4 years after he died, this is the statue that was created and put up in the Boston's public garden. He believed that the congregation and that he, as a minister, were responsible to the world beyond the church's walls, as to the world within the church's walls. His approach was as straightforward as the quote that inspired our service today. So let's say it together. Let's bring that back. I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do something that I can do. With this, amen. I know, it's like a prayer, right? Amen. Well, Caitlin and I were sitting together this past weekend preparing for this worship service. We marveled together at the simplicity and the simple power of this statement. In fact, Everett Hale's faith overall held a similar simple power. He worried about that sometimes. He worried that for as simple as his credo was, he thought he would not in a lifetime have enough to say. He said that his whole credo could be summed up in this phrase, with this phrase: Our Father who art, not my Father, not your Father, but our Father. And not our Father who wast in some distant past, but who art a living, constant presence in us all. His sense of feeling one with his ever-present God led him toward the one thing that he could do. But let's not kid ourselves. He did more than one thing. He was deeply involved in refugee resettlement, the Irish being the refugees of his day as they fled Ireland in the wake of the Irish potato famine. He was a staunch supporter of the emancipation of enslaved people, but in that effort, he was different than many of his contemporaries in that he believed that enslaved African people were as smart and as capable as their white counterparts, so he advocated just as much for their education as for their freedom. He served in the Civil War, in the Sanitation Commission alongside Clara Barton. And after he retired from parish ministry, he served as the Senate's chaplain. He used his influence in that position to successfully lobby for the forestation of the White Mountains, and there is in fact a peak named for him, Mount Hale. So now you all know. I know some of you probably have hiked that peak. Okay, so blah, blah, blah. He did a lot of things that benefited a lot of people. But here's the story. Here's the story that's incredible about him. Most important for us this morning. In 1870, Hale, who was also a prolific fiction writer, he wrote the short story entitled 10 times 1 is 10. The story is about 10 people who meet at a friend's funeral, and they start exchanging stories. And in exchanging those stories, they all come to realize that each of them had been lent money by their departed friend. And so they determined to create together. They make a commitment to each of them to lend money to 10 others. And they form a club, and they use this as their motto. Look up, not down. Look forward, not back. Look out, not in. Lend a hand. And so what happened next, as a result of this story, is quite amazing. 50 what were called 10 times 1 clubs popped up within the United States and beyond, in countries beyond. The Methodists took up the idea and they called it Look Up Legions, and all of their Sunday schools had one. And although none of these exist today, the Lend a Hand Society of Boston remains 100 years later, offering small financial grants to individuals in need and camperships to kids who otherwise would not be able to afford to go to summer camp. It still exists. I think this is a GNO in our future, don't you think? A Good Neighbor offering in our future. Brilliant. Simple. What a life. It is the life of a faithful man who didn't let himself get caught in the weeds when he was trying to figure out what to do to help others. He did what needed to be done, and although he did a lot, he didn't do everything. I tell you our ancestors' story as an anecdote to the anxiety that hangs in the air right now. And I know 2 days before Election Day that the air is hanging particularly heavily. We can, all of us, every day, do one thing. One thing. And the thing about doing one thing is that it keeps our hearts light. It keeps our heads more clear and focused. Doing the one thing you can do keeps hope kindled. And that's why last week was such a good week. It was such a good week. There were so many opportunities to do the one thing you could do, and many of those things were things that we did together, right? We gathered to support our Jewish kin, and we hardly fit in the synagogue, so many came out to say yes to peace among God's beloved and no to the common violence of this age. We came together to say yes to living authentically and with resilience, and no to erasure of people, of identities at the rally in solidarity with the transgender community. We came together to make and enjoy music and raise much needed funds to support our neighbors who are homeless. This is no time for despair. Let there be music. Even in the face of defeat, this is no time for despair. Even if Tuesday does not turn out the way we together hope, it will be no time for despair or self-care. No. We will keep on. And in keeping on, some days you will be Edward Everett Hale. And some days you'll offer a stranger a pickle, and it will be enough. So long as your heart isn't half sour. So long as you faithfully keep hope kindled. If not for we who are here now, then for those who will come after. Keep on, dear souls. Amen.